The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here with Everything MSP. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. So very excited about today's topic. We're going to focus on strategy and leadership, and we're going to do some things a little bit differently. We're going to take a step back, and we're going to be taking more of that state of the industry view, because as MSPs mature, the challenge changes. It's no longer just about the tools that you use. It's about the strategy. It's about positioning, leadership, and how you show value in a way that actually resonates with your buyers. And that's just so critical these days in capturing their attention and getting their full attention to be able to move forward and develop that strategic relationship. In just a moment here, I'm going to bring in Mike Anderson from EasyDMARC, and we're going to talk about how MSPs, their sales starting to feel harder right now, even though security demand has never been higher. Why leading with insights beats leading with a tool stack, and how your domain and email trust can change the way clients see you. And so we have a lot to talk about, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in Mr. Mike Anderson. How you doing today, Mike?
Good to see you, Dan.
It's great to have you here. And, we're talking about security. Security never goes away, does it?
It's never ending. There's always something new out there coming for somebody if you're not paying attention.
Absolutely. And, before we jump into some of the questions I have for you, I want to, level set this for our audience. Most MSPs that I talk to aren't struggling because they lack the tools or the technical skills. They're struggling because their prospects don't fully understand the risk. They don't see the business impact, and MSPs end up competing on price instead of the true thing that they should be talking about, which is the value and the business outcome that it provides to that organization. So this conversation, we're going to be flipping it. And with that being said, one of the first things I wanted to talk with you about is, why does it feel like MSP sales are getting harder, as I talked about in my opening, even though the demand for security is higher than we've ever seen?
Really what I've seen, and I speak to thousands of MSPs on a yearly basis, probably as much as anybody in the market. And all the shows, I travel all over the world, big events, and that we do a velocity acquisition here at EasyDMARC. And so we see that parity has reached even the MSP market. Everybody's broadcasting, hey, we've got security, hey, we've got this practice, we've got that practice. And so when everybody broadcasts, they have the same thing, is anybody any different, right? And so the consumer has a real hard time deciding who they should go with, what they do. It ends up coming down to word of mouth. And you can tell them about your flux capacitor and your inverse transistor, and they don't understand all that, right? They would trust somebody who's given them good insight and thought leadership, but beyond that, it's, why is it hard for the MSP? It's hard for the MSP because they don't distinctly see all of the opportunities coming their way, and, having a provider that can help them uncover some of the intelligence that's out there to see who's looking for what and what tools they're using on your website to be able to turn that information into dollars.
Yeah, one of the thought on that is, what are MSPs missing in how they approach these conversations?
Well, a lot of them are missing the intelligence, right? And so you've got to be able to approach a prospect with data-driven analysis, right? And so, the old story, hey, I'm an MSP, I'd like to talk to you about your IT needs, that no longer sells, right? And there's so many MSPs we see that are still doing that, spray and pray, wide campaigns. Let me do a song and dance on social media and hope somebody likes my ads, right, and clicks on it, versus a data-driven analysis approach that says, hey, we did a complimentary scan, or maybe you used one of our tools and uncovered some data that shows you are at risk, right? And here is a complimentary report about what it means, so that the prospect can go, wow, this guy's really providing me some intelligence that I haven't seen before. And so that's key for the MSP to be able to, have a practice where they can insert intelligent analytics directly to the customer or the prospect. The data is undeniable. It shows they're 82% more likely to have a conversation with you if you give them something of substance, right? But you got to know two things: who that prospect is and what they're looking at. And so those are some of the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah, and I think I've always been a firm believer that our tool set might be exciting to us, but it's dull to the prospect, it's dull to the client, and it is that data set that you're talking about, that analytics, that intelligence that drives their curiosity. It captures their attention, because we've got to remember who our audience is. As my wife often tells the kids, read the room, know your audience, and make sure what you're saying is going to capture their attention. And so I love that approach. And, and what does an MSP, or really, I guess, at what point does an MSP stop being that IT support and start being viewed as the strategic advisor, having those business discussions, talking about business outcomes? When does that happen?
Well, you've got to, number one, be able to start the conversation, right? If you don't have a tool set that uncovers, hey, who's looking at your stuff? What are they looking at, right? Where then you can then feed back the correct information to them. You're not even going to get off the starting line. Companies like EasyDMARC, and there's some other different players in the industry that will give you that type of intelligence. And so once you have the insight to who the prospect is, what some of their issues are, then you can go in with an intelligent conversation. Until you do that, you're just going to be, like every other MSP. Hey, tell me about your risks. Tell me where you're having problems. You're going to be, talk to me about this, that, right? Every other MSP that comes behind you is going to do the same thing, or that came in front of you is doing the same thing, right? How are you differentiating yourself? Unless you already have that type of insight lined up before you get there, or having the ability to proactively reach out to people to say, hey, we're doing some complimentary scans. It does look like you are at risk. Here's some complimentary reports about what it means. We're specialists that can fix it. And people are really looking for that type of intelligence, right? I mean, if I was driving down the road and my headlights were out, I'd want somebody to let me know, right? And so
Right.
MSPs are the same way.
You mentioned the word differentiation, and we know that's so critical as we're out there selling. I do believe that a lot of MSPs think that, when they're out there in front of a prospect, that, they're not, that their clients aren't talking to anybody else. And that is so not true. They are talking to others, they are talking to the competition. It's just, you haven't asked, what does your process look like? Who else are you speaking to? And that's critical. But I think when it comes to that, we must assume that there's 3 to 5 other MSPs that are competing for the business. And so when we look at that, most MSPs have similar tool stack. So where does the real differentiation come from for that MSP?
So if you don't have the ability to proactively go get market insights as to who's looking for what, or type of customers, you're going to put yourself at a distinct advantage. Prospecting has fundamentally changed to companies like EasyDMARC, and there's a few others in different industries that have helped change the dynamics. And this is not hyperbole, right? We literally give you the ability to have a domain scanner from EasyDMARC in your website that will scan domains and give risk assessment reports that you can, automate and customize and send to the prospects. Highly effective. But here's the key, right? It's, what are the prospects that don't leave their information, right? How many are coming to your site and getting away, right? Scanning their domain, but you don't know about it. Well, what we've done is was taking some internal tools that we used for years to be able to pull that data and enrich it and determine who it was, what company, what industry they're in, how big they are, locations, risk segments, top 5 contacts with emails and LinkedIn prospects, so that our internal SDR team could go, hey, we can put a report together, proactively reach out to these people very quickly, sometimes while they're still sitting at their laptop, to be able to say, hey, saw you scanned your domain. Here's some insight to what it is. Looks like you're at risk. We're specialists that can fix it. And so that is something new and unique that the industry just is not doing. EasyDMARC took that behind the scenes process and productized it. And now we give it to our MSPs to be able to, most importantly, see opportunities that they would never see before, right? Remember what we talked about just a minute ago. You don't even get off the starting line until you see that, until you have an opportunity to have a conversation. We are giving MSPs an opportunity to have a conversation that they would never see before. And it's leading to real wins and real revenue and real customers. We're the type of partner that we can give back to the MSP, 10x, 30x, 50x what they're ever going to spend with us continually.
Yeah.
And
so you captured my attention here. So I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So this is a tool that EasyDMARC is used internally to help your sales organization, but because of the success of it, this is something that you're extending out to MSPs to be able to use.
Yeah. And so why are we doing that? EasyDMARC is getting the SMB practice, right? We're moving upstream because as our MSP practice has grown to thousands and thousands and thousands of MSPs, we realize that's the same pool of customers that we have traditionally taken, over the past few years. And so we have tens of thousands of those small businesses, right? Where we go, let's stop competing with our MSPs and give all of that business to our MSPs. And so we've moved up market into the large, the super large, and the enterprise market. And we want to route all of that business to our MSPs.
Oh, wow.
The way we did it and why we knew it would be successful is for years, we sold those same companies doing this very same thing, right? It's logical. We invented it. We already knew it worked. And so we naturally said, how do we get this business moved off to the MSPs? We do that by giving them the same advantage that we used for years to go close all that business. That's how we know it worked. We already closed, tens of thousands of small businesses, but we want to move that off to our MSPs now. And so we pulled that out of the back end, productized it, and we're giving it to our MSPs.
Well, that is a huge differentiating factor. I mean, we're talking about how the differentiating factor is between an MSP, amongst their other MSPs. But what you've talked about is truly a differentiating factor that allows, an EasyDMARC partner to drive new sales. I mean, we all know that every vendor is putting out some type of collateral material, some email templates, but what you're talking about are people looking for this, identifying that through a scan, that there's a problem, and then you're flipping it over to the MSP to help close that business.
Yeah. And this is no different than if you had a car lot and somebody walked on your car lot and was looking at a blue Toyota. You wouldn't wait till they said, hey, I want to buy a blue Toyota. Okay. You would go get that information and reach out to them proactively. It's no different from the MSP having a website. You want to know who's on your website, scanning their domains, right? And so now we've proactively giving you that ability to do that, right? We pull that data, scrape it, connect it through our internal system, our AIs and commercially available databases to enrich it into a ready to contact opportunity very quickly. And so it's highly effective. And so MSPs that do this will now start setting themselves apart. They'll start accelerating their growth and their customer acquisition because now they're seeing people and they're communicating on the level that the customer's doing. The customer's scanning their information. They're looking for information. So now you're able to catch them while they're still hot, literally in many cases, while they're still sitting at their laptop.
that, I mean, we've all done that. I mean, you mentioned the car lot. I've done that myself. I've looked for a vehicle, and all of a sudden you get some type of a call back, or there's that tap, and you're like, oh,
Huh?
wow. Yeah. Yeah. And, you are also, you've gone to other sites, and of course, who are you going to talk to? You're going to talk to somebody that just reached out to you. I love that. And this is available today for EasyDMARC partners.
That's correct for the MSP partners. It's an additional add-on. It's very inexpensive. And we give you the first 100 leads free to enrich.
Yeah.
It ties in. It will automatically tie into the largest 17 CRM platforms. We're releasing the first 8, I think, at the end of this week, and then the next 8 or 9 will be released right after that in the next month or so. And so it creates what used to take hours. Okay, maybe I got a little bit of intelligence. Now I got to sift all this data to get a tiny piece of gold I might be able to sell. Right.
Right.
We just collapsed that whole process down into about 5 minutes or less.
That's great.
Now where you can just create market, drive people to your website about security, DMARC security, deliverability, risk assessments, and when they scan their domain, whether they leave their information or not, you're going to know it and be able to proactively outreach back to them. Most importantly, do it very quickly while they're still thinking about it or still at their laptop. And, the data is undeniable for MSPs. First in to win. If you can contact them first, you're 78% more likely to win the business.
Yeah.
And if you contact them while they're still sitting at their laptop, the data shows you're almost 400% more likely to win the business. And so this is all about our MSPs winning, taking that layer that we want to move up market and moving that to our MSPs.
I love that. And, that speed to close is so critical because, we live, somebody might not be classified as ADD, but I think, short form videos, reels. I mean, we've become, having that very short attention span, and you got to capture it while it's hot. Definitely.
Yeah.
So you guys do have a free trial available for our audience, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm not sure if you have the link. We can get one to you, but EasyDMARC.com. Of course, we have an MSP site. Right on the front of the MSP is a link to a free trial. We'll give you the first month free for all everything MSP listeners, Stack listeners. We'll give you that first month free. Try it. It's no risk. We'll give you the first 100 leads for free. You can see how it works. It's really been a market changer for our MSPs and us.
That's great. And Mike, this has been a great conversation, very high level conversation that's so critical for MSPs that are looking to differentiate, looking to grow, scale their business, take it to the next level. And that's what it's all about today. And it's truly being able to capture the attention of your audience, capture the attention of those prospects, because, at the end of the day, like we said, they are inundated with all kinds of communications. And if there's a way that while, the iron is hot, we can capture that is huge. And so thank you so much for your time and knowledge as always. I really appreciate being able to chat with you.
My pleasure, Dan. Always good to see you.
Thank you. And for everybody listening, check out EasyDMARC, of course, at EasyDMARC.com. And you can also find EasyDMARC at the everythingmsp.com website. You can search for them. There's additional information as well as a way to reach out to them. And until next time, everybody, thank you very much. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.